right. We wait for a text from Travis.
Is that a new
Anticipation. Say again?
That hat looks like a new Trail Fest hat.
Yeah.
It's cool. Oh, yeah, it's got craft on it.
Trail Fest is like monopolized the running hat game. I'm kind of jealous. Okay, we are live. Thank you to our viewing audience who are confirming that in the chat. Probably Travis Longcar. But welcome to the 2025 Broken Arrow Skyrace Freetrails Trailgating here. This begins 8 straight days of live shows starting at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time from now all the way until next Thursday before Western States. We are going to be documenting and bringing all the fun stories and action from 2 of North America's most important racing events. Of course, the Broken Arrow Skyrace starts tomorrow. We're going to get into that here momentarily. And then all through Western States Race Week leading up to North America's most important and oldest 100-miler. So put us on your calendar. Block out your calendar at 3:30 p.m. starting now for the next 8 days. You're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be absolutely legendary trail running. Joining me here today, my co-host, the great EmKay Sullivan in studio. EmKay, how you doing?
I am great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
So good. I'm so glad you're here specifically. We have so much to talk about.
It's, honestly too many things if we're being honest, but I'm excited.
Okay, so a quick run of show. Today's show is all about the top 10 storylines of the 2025 Broken Arrow Skyrace. We've got 10 amazing topics to bang through. We're going to try and do it as quickly and as succinctly and as entertainingly as we possibly can here over the course of the next hour or so. Like I said, we're going to be live every day starting at 3:30. So tomorrow after the Ascent race, which we'll talk about here shortly, we'll be back in studio talking about the results, ideally bringing in some of the podium finishers. There's a lot of consequential things attached to performance here during race weekend, and we'll get into that momentarily. And then also we'll preview the 46K, which is going to be on Saturday. We'll do the same thing on Saturday after the 46K, have the podium in here, and then we'll preview the 23K of the Golden Trail World Series on Sunday. Before we get to it, make sure you go to fantasy.freetrail.com. You're going to pick 5 deep in all 3 races, plus 10 deep in Western States for a chance to win a bunch of great prizes. And finally, as we look ahead towards Western States, you're also going to want to navigate to the stats tool. We have a stats tab on fantasy.freetrail.com where you can actually go and search through a lot of the historical splits of Western States and sort of start geeking out on all the data for the next week. Plus, EmKay, we're launching into it here. You're running the vertical tomorrow, 22 weeks pregnant. How you feeling?
Pretty good. Everything over like a 10% grade is very hard for me, but I'm just, it's pretty short now. We'll talk about that, but I'm just going to go as hard as I can. And I don't even know if I have a goal really other than to get to the top. So
you did take a pregnancy deferral. You were supposed to be running Western States next weekend.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit, because both yourself, Leah Yingling, and Rachel Drake all took the pregnancy deferrals. And as I understand it, I mean, it's a pretty cool and remarkable thing. Maybe you can explain it a little bit to the audience.
Yeah. So, Western States has a great pregnancy deferral policy. It's pretty much unlimited. Like, there is no time limit. Like UTMB, for example, you have to come back within 5 years, which is still very generous, but Western States is unlimited. So I was hoping to be able to get a golden ticket again and try to get pregnant and defer it, because I know that one day I definitely want to run Western States, but I was hoping to maybe get the family thing started first and see how that went. And it worked out for me, fortunately, like maybe a little too well. I was pregnant at Black Canyon, but I was so stoked. Like, I literally went through and like looked up all the deferrals, because you can only plan so much. You don't know what your body's going to do, but I was like, I might as well try it, see what happens. And so now I get to come back to Western States whenever I choose to, which is pretty cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Race director Craig Thornley told me about an exchange he had with Rachel Drake, and I think Rachel had assumed she has to do it next year when she took the deferral. But as you're saying, no, there is no time.
My team manager was like, you have to come back next year, right? Yeah. And I was like, no, I can come back whenever. He was like, are you serious? I was like, yeah.
What a luxury. You just have a golden ticket for the rest of the time. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So you are running the vertical here tomorrow.
Yes.
So instead of doing Western States, you get to just sort of traipse uphill at a leisurely pace. I don't know how aggressively you're planning to approach it, but
You know, I ran a local half marathon down in Reno a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I'm gonna just like hang out and run like, you know, maybe over 2 hours or something. And then I got out there and I got way too competitive and I ended up second. So I say that I'm gonna just like try to get to the top now, but you'll probably see me like absolutely beat red in the face, like going as hard as I can tomorrow.
you know, you only know one speed. When you're a competitor, you're a
Exactly.
competitor. Okay, before we get into our top 10 storylines of the weekend, it's good to catch up. And the last thing I wanted to just show our viewers here today is the first print edition of the Trail Times, a little collab joint between Freetrail and Never Second Nutrition. Great supporters of Freetrail, the Sub Hub, EmKay Sullivan. So shout out Never Second. If you're here in Olympic Valley, you can pick up these newspapers at the Never Second booth or at the legendary coffee bar, which we are sitting above right now and where the Freetrail studio will be starting on Monday. So shout out to Never Second for putting this together. We also have, just wanted to show the article in the newspaper about EmKay Sullivan. So you got to go pick up the Trail Times as Ryan circles around to take a photo here. Anyway, launching into it, the top 10 storylines of the 2025 Broken Arrow Skyrace. We are going to start with number 10, which is just a general conversation about the growth of Broken Arrow over time. Broken Arrow started in 2016. There was only 300-ish runners across 3 distances. There's now 3,000 plus runners this weekend across like 8 or 9 distances.
And I think that the wait lists are longer than that for like each event, like more than 300 people.
Yeah. So maybe you could just share a little bit about what Broken Arrow means to North American trail running, and also maybe speak a little bit about your personal experience here, because you've been pretty successful.
Yeah, I mean, Broken Arrow was like one of the first trail races that I ever heard about because I live in Reno, which is very close. And I had several friends who used to come up and do this race. And I mean, every year, like you said, it just gets bigger and bigger. And Danny and I actually talked about this on our preview, that I feel like this race has been kind of like a jumping off point for a lot of professional athletes in the U.S., like myself, Tabor Hemming and Eli Hemming, Danny. Like if you came to Broken Arrow, you know, prior to like 2022 and you like were on the podium, you were likely going somewhere else afterwards or like getting a sponsor.
Yep.
And I had a similar experience like that where like I came here, it was one of my first trail races, I got second, and then it was like felt like my career kind of launched from there.
I remember that. That was the first time I heard your name.
Yeah. And it was awesome. And I like haven't stopped coming back because it's just Brendan and team put on such a fantastic event, and it's gotten to the point now where like literally everybody wants to be a part of it.
Yeah.
I have several athletes who are like, I'm still 200th on the wait list, you know, and it's 2 days before the race, you know.
Yeah.
So it's very cool.
I wanted to add this to our docket because I've been coming to Broken Arrow since it started. So I've been able to see its maturation over time. And it really is a remarkable weekend, not only with the competitiveness and the entertainment of the races themselves, but also just like being in the village and enjoying the vibe. Obviously, there's 3,000 runners. There's probably at least that in terms of like fans and spectators, crews, supporters, brands. There's a huge vendor village. It's a really easy place to just kind of like hang out for the whole weekend. And the races are relatively short, at least when we're comparing it against Western States. So it ends up just being like such a fun weekend where you have 3 days of fantastic racing and then obviously just all the good fun hangs in between.
I always end up getting stuck down here for like the entire weekend. Like I plan on coming up for like 1 day and like hanging out or racing, and then all of a sudden I'm like here for 4 hours after the race because I keep running into people or there's like a vendor. Yeah, it's chaos, but it's so exciting.
Yeah, it's so exciting. So to our viewers and listeners, make sure you come to Broken Arrow at some point. It is well worth placement on your bucket list. Moving on, number 9, we're going to talk about the depth of the 2025 Broken Arrow relative to both Broken Arrow historically and of Western States, because I think as we look at these 2 races being on consecutive weekends, obviously Western States, the granddaddy of them all, has provided really an excuse for people to start coming earlier and earlier. And Broken Arrow, obviously, I think drafts off the name and reputation and tradition of Western States, and having them on 2 back-to-back weekends is just so fun for those of us who get to experience it in person. But I think it also allows Broken Arrow to continue to grow and improve on the competitive side. So what Ryan's going to pull up here are 3 different graphics. Our good friend and colleague here at Freetrail, Travis Longcar, did an analysis of competitiveness of Broken Arrow over time, and he broke this into 3 different categories. So we're going to go through each individually, and we have visuals that our viewers can follow along with. First, starting with the peak 10, okay? So according to Travis, this is the mean UTMB index of the top 10 runners in the race. It's a measure of the top end talent that does not discount outliers. So if you look at the bar graphs here, he also included Sierras and All, which is the dark blue on the far left-hand side. He did that in order to sort of provide another sort of analog that we could use to do these fun comparisons. So again, this is analyzing the UTMB index score of the top 10 runners in the race. You'll see Western States, still you could call it significantly ahead of Broken Arrow in terms of just the top 10 UTMB indexes of those who are in the race, but Broken Arrow definitely catching on. You can see over time from 2023 till now in 2025. Travis's key takeaways here before I pass it to you here, EmKay. We call these Trav bombs now. Okay, so I'm going to just read these Trav bombs. He says the women's peak 10 is at an all-time high across all of the Broken Arrow races. Next bullet point. The men's peak 10 increased in the Broken Arrow 23K. He attributes this to the Golden Trail World Series influence. So the men's peak 10 is growing here at Broken Arrow. The women's peak 10 remains roughly the same as Western States as it was in 2024, despite Katie Scheid not being in the field. So the peak 10 at Western States still just as competitive, even without, Katie Scheid and Courtney Dauwalter in the mix. The women's peak 10 at Western States has rivaled that of Sierras and All over the past 2 years. And Sierras and All, I think, as we go through some of these graphics and visuals, we'll start to really have an appreciation of just how deep and competitive that race is. Before we move on, any comments from you on this peak 10?
It's cool to see the 46K having moved up in index like over the last 2 years because, you see in 2024, there's a big jump in the VK and the 23K. But I think people also are realizing now that this 46K, it's just a sub ultra festival. So it's become more competitive across all 3 instead of just the 2 shorter distances getting all the attention. So yeah.
Very cool. All right. So now we're going to move to the Ridge 25. So as opposed to the peak 10, which focuses on the top 10, the Ridge 25 is the median UTMB index of the top 25 runners in the race. Okay. So I got some Trav bombs here for you, EmKay. So we got 5 bullet points here. Number 1, the women's Ridge 25 is an all-time high across all of the Broken Arrow races.
But we love
so
that.
We've never seen a Broken Arrow where 25 deep it's been this competitive. Second bullet point, the most pronounced increase in the Ridge 25 for both fields is in the 46K. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit as to why that is, but the 46K definitely catching some momentum here. Third bullet point, the men's Ridge 25 at Western States is comparable to that of the 2023 and 2024 races. So Western States basically on par. Fourth bullet point, the women's Ridge 25 at Western States is at a 3-year high. Okay, so 3-year high going 25 deep at Western States. The depth is deep, as they say. And the fifth and final bullet point on this, the metric begins to show us the impressive competitive depth of Sierras and All. So again, that blue line that you see on the far left of these bar graphs is Sierras and All. This is where we start to get an appreciation of just how deep Sierras and All is by UTMB index. Comments on the Trav bombs?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Sierras and All, I can attest to that. I remember finishing, 25th there or something and thinking I had such a terrible day. Yeah. And then you look historically at other people that have finished in the 20s and you're like, wow, actually, I'm totally fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, Western States women's field, I believe that too, because I was telling you offline that I have a first draft of my top 10 and it is nowhere near ready to go because I have no idea who's going to be in my top 10 still.
Yeah. Go get your fantasy picks in. Okay, moving on, the base 50 here. So as you'll probably assume, the base 50 is the median UTMB index of the top 50 runners in the race. We'll just bang through this one quickly. But what you'll notice is on the right-hand side, the 2025 graph, this is where we see Broken Arrow overtake Western States. In this case, this is where Western States is disadvantaged by simply the field size. It's only 369 runners. So once you start measuring 50 deep, it's hard to have that kind of depth where,
especially with the lottery as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Broken Arrow benefits from just having a larger cap. But then if you, again, look at Sierras and all going 50 deep, holy smokes, a median UTMB index score of 750.
It's disgusting.
Disgusting. Okay. Just a couple trav bombs here. Women's base 50 is an all-time high across all the Broken Arrow races. The men's base 50 is an all-time high for the Broken Arrow 46K. So the 46K, again, has never been more competitive. Significant increase in the base 50 for the women's field at Western States, whereas the base 50 for the men's race decreased, which, you know, we can talk about later in the week. But again, yeah, here we see a clear illustration of Sierras and All's competitive depth over time. So anyway, storyline number 9, Broken Arrow really emerging into its own as being one of the most competitive races in the world, really. It is a world-class event. It's no longer just a North American event, and we're going to talk more about that here as we move through the list. But before we get too far, storyline number 8. Grayson Murphy goes long, finally. Much anticipation. The 2-time world champion doing her first ultra.
What a wild ride. I mean, for like most of this year, she's been entered in all 3 events. And it was like, basically, I think up until last month, we were like, is Grayson doing the Triple Crown? That seems crazy. Yeah. But yeah, for her to pick the 46K, it definitely shakes things up for her, but also for the rest of the field. Like, total dark horse, realistically, because we don't know how she's going to do. She hasn't even run that far, like on the roads. The furthest she's run on the roads is a half marathon. So it's like, you don't even have like a marathon time to point to and be like, oh yeah, this is it. It's going to be like total wild card day out there for her, I think.
So Grayson is sort of like the original hybrid crossover athlete, going from track and field to the trails and going back and forth, competing at both simultaneously. I think she's been an inspiration to a lot of these new like hybrid sub-ultra specialists, people like Lauren Gregory, Anna Gibson, etc. But it is very exciting for her to be doing an ultra for the first time. We were at an Osprey event a couple of months ago, and she said, I'm sort of getting 50K curious, you know, I'm looking towards Broken Arrow. But we should say for our viewers and listeners, a 2-time mountain running world championship in the classic discipline, aka the up-down races. She's also been 3rd place bronze medalist in the vertical. Yep. And so she's as good as it gets in terms of her pedigree and her accomplishments in the sport. I am personally so excited to see her run a 50K.
I'm stoked. It's going to be a fun day I mean, we could get into the 46K as well, but it's just like the whole field is crazy, but she definitely adds an even like crazier element to it, I think. Cause like I said, we just don't know how that's, where is she going to stack up against this incredibly competitive women's field? Yeah,
and she already is qualified for Team USA because she is the defending world champion. We're going to come back and talk about that in a few minutes, but just want to flag that for the audience. Grayson Murphy, good luck in your ultra debut. We cannot wait as fans of yours. The number 7 storyline here, EmKay, the Golden Trail World Series does Broken Arrow for the first time. Speak a little bit about the significance of the Golden Trail World Series globally at this point.
Yeah, I mean, first off, finally, you know, like it's been Golden Trail National Series for a couple years now, but I feel like this has been a long time coming. It makes so much sense for them to be at this race. But I mean, Golden Trail World Series has changed the way that I think, one, media works with trail running, but also just like has totally made sub-ultra short trail events relevant. And so it makes sense for them to come to the biggest short trail event in the US and, you know, be a part of that as well. And it just is, I think it's extremely exciting to have, because last year we had the honor of having Joyce and Patrick and Philemon join us, but now the international field is even bigger this year. And I just think Golden Trail will continue to change the game in a lot of ways, but having to like do this weird schedule thing with Worlds this year, but still making sure that we have an American race, I think is incredibly important and awesome for us.
So. Speaking as a fan, I think the Golden Trail World Series product is the best racing product in the sport right now.
Yeah.
Arguably the most competitive racing series globally. It's also where we're starting to see the initial entry point with East African athletes.
Yeah.
Obviously, Patrick Kipneno and Philemon Kiriago have been on this series for a few years now, but then we saw Joyce Njeru, another Kenyan athlete, win the whole thing last year. El Hussein El Azawi, who's here this weekend from Morocco, another African athlete. So Golden Trail really is pushing trail running into this next generation, and it's so fun to watch and so fun to see, and it's so great to have this marriage between Broken Arrow and Golden Trail. It only feels natural. This season, Broken Arrow is the 5th race so far in the Golden Trail World Series calendar. They did a couple races in Asia, a couple races in Europe. This is the 5th stop. And then the weekend of Western States, next weekend, they're in Mexico for the first time in Golden Trail history. So they're also starting to move around the world and, you know, I guess getting more in contact with the American market here, but also now Latin America's in the mix. Asia's been in the mix now for 2 years. So it really is maturing as a global series.
And it provides opportunities for athletes all over the world, whereas it used to be like pretty Eurocentric. But like, you know, I can speak for myself, like Golden Trail World Series, if you can get to the like one event and you do well, like they help you get to a lot of other events. Like, and that really provides a lot of opportunities for athletes that like wouldn't otherwise have that. So I hope we see something like that down in Mexico. Like I'd love to see some Mexican crushers like get to go to Sears and all. Like they already have one opportunity with the race down in Mexico that gets them there, but it'd be cool to see more athletes like involved in it from all over the world.
Yep. You know what's crazy, and we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but next weekend is Western States Race Week. And let's just say it's Western States Race Week, and it has been for 52 years.
Yes.
We also have Lavaredo, the Mont Blanc Marathon, a Golden Trail race in Mexico, Andorra by UTMB. It's like, get off my lawn, okay? Like,
It's Western
Western States Race Weekend. You guys all need to move your races to other weekends so that us in the media have an easier time staying up to date on everything. Controversial take here.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to talk about, I know you and Danny have been talking about sort of the USA versus the world thing here and the Golden Trail race. Do you want to talk about that before we move on?
I mean, this year is going to be, I think, like a big like push for that, right? Like we have athletes like Lauren Gregory and Anna Gibson who showed up to like the Golden Trail final last year and kind of like really put on. But, you know, this year it's not just the two of them. Allie Mac is back. I think Jess Brazeau is going to do really well in the VK. She's not in the 23K, but she's like a contender in the VK. You got Rachel Tomajic, you got Ali Ostrander, like, and Janelle Lynx is back. You know, it's just like this whole list of American women, and most of these women have competed on this course before, and so they know it better than any of the Europeans do. And I think that, you know, they're like 2 years into this sport too now, like all this younger generation of like American women and men, and I think this is like really going to be their time to shine. Yeah, it's so exciting. Okay, super fun, a lot to look forward to on the Golden Trail front, which again is Sunday's race, the 23K. Yep.
Not to be confused with the double Team USA qualifiers. Moving to the number 6 storyline here at the Broken Arrow Skyrace. Both tomorrow's Ascent and the 46K on Saturday get a number of very lucky runners and very talented runner spots on Team USA. Share a bit about how this works with the audience.
Yeah, so for the Ascent, that will be the qualification for the vertical team that goes to World Championships in September. The top 4 American men and women will make that team. And it will, I think the 5th American will be an alternate. So if one of those 4 does not take it, then it will roll down to the 5th person. On the 46K side, it is only top 3 Americans. It does not roll down within the race. So like, you know, for example, we'll talk about this in a little bit. Jen Lichter's already qualified for the long trail team. If she doesn't take the team, then only 2 women, you know, get that spot. So top 3 Americans from the race, and then 3 resume qualifiers will be going to the World Championships for the short trail team, which is the marathon distance.
Okay, so suffice it to say, we're going to have a number of people punching those red, white, and blue tickets for Team USA, but then there's also going to be people who can apply and will get in through the resume process as you described.
But you better have your application in soon because I think it closes pretty soon after Broken Arrow.
One of the things I wanted to touch on here before we move on is just the growth in importance of the World Championships, which to our viewers and listeners might seem counterintuitive, but for most of my career, I probably turned down 3 opportunities to race at the World Championships because it just didn't have the same cachet as some of just like the established races on the international trail running circuit. But ever since Thailand, when they combined the short distance World Championships with the long distance World Championships to create a week-long competitive trail running festival akin to what you would see in a track and field or something like that. I feel like the World Championships is now like a true, real World Championships and a celebration of all the different disciplines of the sport. Ryan and I were just talking today about of all the trips we go on, of all the races we go to every year, it might be the World Championships this year that we're most looking forward to.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it makes sense, right? Because when all of those World Championships were like split up, it's like, okay, but like then who's the world champion? Why do we have a world champion in April and a world champion in September? Like that doesn't make sense. And now it's like, oh, it's like a track meet. You have several world champions at different specialties, but it all happens at the same time at the same place. So it's like, it definitely holds more weight. I'm having major FOMO because I was on the world's team in 2023. And
you're top 10. You were 9th, weren't you?
Yeah, I was 9th at the World Champs.
Huge result. Yeah.
It was one of the best races of my life. I still like look back on that so fondly. But it was such a cool experience to put on the Team USA jersey and then also be able to like watch other events happen and like, Grayson get to be world champion, Grayson get 3rd, the men podium in the long trail, the women podium in the long trail. Like it was highly recommend. You know?
The World Championships this year are going to be in Confranc, Spain, in the Pyrenees, I think. So we're very much looking forward to that trip. And maybe someday, one of the things Freetrail is trying to work on is when do we get the World Championships here in the USA?
I would love that. ...
We'll look forward to that. And this is a great segue to our 5th storyline. But before we do that, I got to give a big, huge thank you to our friends at Hoka who are supporting all of our coverage here during Broken Arrow and all the way through Western States. Obviously, we do a lot of fun stuff with Hoka throughout the Golden Ticket Chase with at UTMB, at Western States. We'll be moving into the Hoka studio down in Coffee Bar on Monday, which we can't wait for. And you guys got to go check out this new Mafate X shoe, a forked carbon plate, dual density super foams, sort of like a max cushion, but fast new trail running shoe with Vibram outsole that's got pizzas and tacos on it. Rye's rocking it here in the studio.
Pizzas and tacos?
Pizzas and tacos on that Vibram outsole. You can never be too careful with your traction when you're podcasting, okay? So go check out Hoka.com. Check out the Mafate X.
It's getting
an
serious in here.
awesome new shoe from Hoka. Big thank you to them. Okay, so again, keeping on this theme of the World Championships, our 5th storyline here are people who are going to be racing this weekend who are already on Team USA, who have already qualified somewhere else. So I'm just going to bang through the names, EmKay, and then I'm going to throw them to you because we've got 10 athletes who fit that description. First and foremost, person we just mentioned, Grayson Murphy. She's making her ultra debut, but she's automatically qualified for Team USA in the Classic because she's the defending champion.
Yep.
Taylor Stack is doing he's not doing the Ascent anymore.
He's not doing the Ascent.
So he's doing the 23K. But he is already on Team USA with the Classic. Anna Gibson's doing the double, Ascent and 23K. She's on Team USA, the Classic. Same with Mason Coppi. He's doing just the 23K. Cam Smith doing the double. He's also in the Classic. Allie Mac, Classic, doing the double. David Norris, 46K, he's on Team USA in the Classic. So you can talk about what's on the line here for David. And then banging through it here, Trayson Knopp is doing the 46K. He's on Team USA for Long Trail, along with his partner Claire Rhodes. Same thing. Team USA Long Trail doing the 46K. And then I wanted to give a special shout out to Jade Bellsberg, who's Canadian. She'll be representing Team Canada, but she's running the Ascent and the 23K this weekend also.
And 11th athlete actually, Jennifer Lichter is running the 46K, and she is already on the Long Trail team because she was a resume pick.
Oh, Oh,
Yeah.
All right.
So it's going to be wild on the women's side.
All right,
for
so
that 46K.
Explain to the audience though, for like take David Norris as an example.
Okay.
Right. He's already on Team USA for the Classic, the up down.
Yep.
Say he gets second in the 46K. He either does the double, he either does short trail and the Classic, or he has to pick one of the two.
Yeah, and I don't know totally how like USATF feels about that double because there is one day in between them, so it's totally doable. Like because the schedule is VK, short trail, long trail, Classic, and so if he did short trail, there'd be a break day in Classic. It's doable, but you know the pounding of a 46K in the mountains and then trying to do an up down fast race might be a little difficult. Whereas I could see somebody doing the vertical team and the short trail or the vertical and the long trail. But yeah, I don't know exactly how they would feel about that.
Yeah.
I would personally have to choose between the two because
Yeah.
I would not survive a 46K Classic double.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Very interesting. But the people who likely will have an easier time with USATF are the likes of Anna Gibson, Cam Smith, Allie Mac, Taylor Stack.
Yeah.
Explain that to the audience.
Totally doable double.
Yeah.
Like that's something that people have been doing for, the last like 3 versions.
Including
or I guess 2
Grayson Murphy, who
versions.
medaled in both.
Yeah, because those are there's 2 rest days in between. They're both short events, so it's almost like doing like a 10K, 5K double on the track. Like the uphill race is obviously very hard, but there's no pounding on your legs. So coming back for a Classic race 2 days later is not unreasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen that executed very well by a lot of
Many
athletes
people,
in
yeah.
history, including Grayson Murphy. All right, so finally on this topic, Trayson Knopp and Claire Rhodes already on the long trail team.
Yeah.
If they qualify for short trail, they will definitely have to choose
Yes.
one or the other.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Alaskans, Trayson and Claire. Hopefully they get an opportunity to make that tough decision.
Yeah.
It'll be fun to see. But either way, they're secure with their spots on Team USA. I feel like that was just very confusing, but we did our best to explain that. There are 11 athletes already on Team USA who are going to be racing this weekend. I think another testament to where we started this. Broken Arrow is full of a lot of great athletes.
Absolutely.
Moving on, our 4th storyline this weekend, prize money. 60,000 bones on the line in total here at Broken Arrow.
So good.
The second biggest prize purse, I think, in the entire sport behind Run Rabbit Run. It's kind of a big deal. Doug, I mean, you're still kind of I'm more of a retired former pro. You're still in the mix. You're still in the middle of your prime.
Yeah, I'm
taking a break
I'm going
to-
after that VK money tomorrow, don't you know? Like, come on.
But I mean, I think this is important as we talk about the maturation of the sport and the professionalization of the races and of the athletes. It definitely provides a little bit more motivation, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. I think that prize money at some point is going to have to become something that is just like an absolute. Like you look at, you were just talking about Western States versus like Mont Blanc Marathon versus Lavaredo. Pretty sure Lavaredo has prize money. Mont Blanc Marathon is putting up 10 grand for first place.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're somebody who's like looking at even, the difference between like Western States and Mont Blanc Marathon, like, I don't know, I'd take Mont Blanc Marathon if I thought I had a chance to win $10,000 over Western States because it's becoming more and more people's jobs instead of just something that like you hope to be a job, but you don't make that much money off of.
Yep.
But I mean, this prize purse, like Brendan has done a fantastic job of just raising the bar every single year. And with the addition of Golden Trail World Series in it, in the 23K, it's going to go even deeper this year than it would in previous years. So, I mean, I think it's an essential part of the sport at this point. If you want to be an elite race, unless you have the prestige of like a Western States already behind you, I think it's just, it's got to happen.
I agree. And I was going to say that also, just give kudos to Brendan Madigan and the Broken Arrow team because this race already has the cachet. It already has the influence. All the athletes' sponsors already want them to be here. Brendan and his team could easily just, save that
Absolutely.
money, put it back into the operation or, pay themselves maybe a more comfortable salary for all the hard work that goes into it. But they are specifically investing in the professional end of the sport. And I'm sure the athletes really appreciate it. They also do really important stuff for like housing shares. They put up a lot of the pros here. who come and make sure that they're looked after, even and especially those who don't have as much of the sponsor support as, you know, the more name brand athletes. So giving the entry level, the up and comer athlete an opportunity to have a breakthrough, it's an invaluable thing. Kind of like you a few years ago.
I mean, me a few years ago, but also it's like you think about Brooks is kind of changing the game a little bit, I think, at least in the US right now when it comes to short trail athletes. But a lot of short trail athletes probably aren't making as much money as like longer trail athletes anyways. So providing them the opportunity to make money here because, you know, who knows, like maybe their contract doesn't cover this because it's not something that is important to a brand. Like, but you get to come here and maybe win $3,500. Like, hell yeah, I'm into it.
So $15K on the line in the Ascent tomorrow and roughly 22,500 in both the 46K and the 23K. So roughly 60 grand total. Shout out to the whole Broken Arrow team for making that possible. Our third storyline, breaking into the top three here. The Fantastic Four finally locking horns for the first time here in 2025. Share with the audience who I'm talking about.
El Hussein El Azawi, Patrick Kipnieno, Philemon Ombogo, and Remy Bonnet. And I hope, because we all saw on his Instagram story today that Remy was like maybe a little beat up. I hope that we still get all four of them on the line. But these four men have been battling it out in Golden Trail for the last 2 years. Last year was kind of the big year for them. 2 years ago, it was like the beginning. But I mean, El Hussein kind of like shut it all down last year, but he was never alone in any race. We saw so many like sprint finishes, which you shouldn't be seeing in a race, you know, over 2 hours, but it's like commonplace now. These men have made Golden Trail on the men's side very exciting.
Yeah. So a Moroccan, 2 Kenyans, and a Swiss athlete. That alone is really fun and remarkable. But then, I mean, like Patrick's a double world champion. El Hussein, the defending Golden Trail world champion. Remy, the champion the year before, 2 years ago.
3 years ago, I think.
Philemon, like still only 23 years old.
Has won Sears and all, was second to Killian last year by seconds.
Yeah. So anyway, the Fantastic Four, as we call them, last year they just put on a show weekend after weekend. As you mentioned, a few of them coming down to 1 or 2 seconds in the finishing shoot together. Absolute pain and agony on the faces, but also creating just, I think, really dramatic and fun stories for those of us who are fans. And as you mentioned, Remy, maybe a little bit banged up, still some question marks about how he's feeling going into the 23K. But another thing I wanted to toss to you before we move on is El Hussein and Remy are both not doing the Ascent, where Patrick and Philemon are. Speak about the calculus there, about like how much does it take out of the athlete? Where does it make sense to do the Ascent? Because for me, it's almost a surprise to not see Remy in the Ascent, who's sort of over the last few years.
His thing.
That's his thing.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting. El Hussein, I'm not surprised. Like he's never done anything like that, you know, at any of the other races. But Remy, I am surprised he's not doing the VK. Actually, quite bummed he's not doing it because that storyline would be even crazier, you know, with Killian involved. But Patrick and Philemon race so frequently because they also do a lot of WMRA races. And so they're very used to doing like an uphill race one day and 2 days later doing a short race or something like that. So I don't see this affecting like their ability to win on Sunday at all. Yeah.
And El Hussein, at least when you watch the Golden Trail coverage, they always talk about his downhill ability.
Yeah. He probably wouldn't do, I mean, he still, I can't imagine him being outside of the top 5.
Yeah, of course.
But he's probably less likely to win the Ascent than he is the 23K.
Right, where, you know, Patrick, 2-time defending world champ.
Yeah.
Okay, keep that seed in your brains because we're going to come back to it for our number 1 storyline. But our number 2 storyline, we're going to stick with returning champions. We've got Patrick and Joyce, who were double champions here last year, so they won both the Ascent and the 23K. And then we have David Sinclair returning as the champion of the 46K. So the only champion we're missing of the 3 premier distances from last year is Tony McCann.
Where are you at, Tony?
Where are you at, Tony? Come on. She came over to pace one of her teammates at Western States last year, so it made sense to lace the 46K. We miss you, Tony, here, but we got 3 out of the 4 defending champs back here at Broken Arrow. We haven't said anything about Sinclair yet either. So
I know. I mean, David Sinclair ran so fast last year here at Broken Arrow that they like basically weren't ready for him at the finish line. So we'll see if that's the David that we get. You know, come Saturday, but you know, like we've mentioned, the 46K this year is incredibly stacked. It was stacked last year, but it's like even this year has leveled up. So I'm excited to see David Sinclair back here. He's probably run this race like 4 or 5 times at this point.
He used
Has
to
he
live
won
in
it
the area.
twice, I think already?
He's won 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, he lived in Tahoe until sometime last year when he moved back to Vermont. So was a local race, but I mean, I'm sure he'll be firing on
He's
all
a
gears.
nut too. He's doing the vertical 46K double.
Yeah.
Which is aggressive.
Good.
And he
good
did
for
that
him.
last year, we should say too. And it worked out.
I think he was like 9th or something, or he was right outside of the top 10 in the ascent last year, and then came back and just absolutely wiped everybody in the 46K.
His 46K last year was stupid.
One of
was
the
so
most
impressive.
like races of the year, I think, for sure.
And
I
then
mean, most of the things he touched last year, I would say, were
I think Sinclair was 5th or 6th in Trail Runner of the Year last year.
Yeah.
His I think it was his JFK was in the top 5 for performances of the year. And I know your
speed
friend
goat
and
was
partner,
crazy,
his
too.
speed go I was at, and it was
insane.
He
Yeah.
broke Adam Peterman's course record there. He's the first person to, I think, go under 5 hours
yes.
at speed goat. So as an altitude mountain runner, Sinclair is an absolute savage.
You
Your
can
friend
never
and
count him
partner, Danny Moreno, I think, wanted to talk about the battle or the rematch between Eli and David Sinclair. I think that's
After
maybe fun to
JFK?
talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, because at JFK, Eli led most of the race, and David was right on him. And I think David has said this, he has said, I was just letting him do all the work, he did it. But then Eli had some stomach issues, and David just absolutely dropped him. It was for 30 miles or something, they were together, and then David was just like, peace out, I'm going to go PR in the marathon or something. So it's exciting to see them back, because Eli Hemming is obviously the reigning OCC champion, which is a little bit more mountainous, which is something that I would have said that David Sinclair was probably better at anyways, but then he obviously proved us a little bit wrong with that insane JFK time. So putting them together in this mountainous yet kind of still short race is very exciting.
So exciting. So Eli Hemming is the defending OCC champion.
Yeah.
That's effectively like you're the world champion at
the
50K.
Yeah.
So I think it's fun for us fans to think about the potential eventuality of Sinclair and Hemming not only battling here, but both being on Team USA in the
champs.
short trail.
Oof.
Come on, boys. We
Oof.
got to bring home a gold in the short trail in
Yes.
Confranc. It's up to you, David Sinclair and Eli Hemming. Okay, no pressure.
I love that.
It's
Putting
funny,
the heat
actually.
on.
I had David on my show after he won Speed Goat last year.
Yeah.
And I think it was after we were done recording, but I was like, dude, you got to go do OCC. We need you in OCC. He was like, yeah, email the race organizers. I don't think I can get in because Speed Goat got him an automatic for OCC this year.
Yeah.
So I sent a note to you, Jimmy. I was like, you got to let David Sinclair, and he just broke Adam Peterman's course record
I
at
know.
Speed Goat.
It would have been so good.
Oh, it
and
would have been.
I'm kind of bummed because this year he's actually signed up for CCC, not OCC. I wanted to see him.
Sinclair is?
Yeah, I wanted
Okay.
to. I'm
Because so
pretty
is
sure.
Eli.
Yeah, I wanted to see him in OCC, but CCC
All right.
rematch again. We got Eli and David several times this year.
We're already getting ahead of ourselves to the top 10 storylines of OCC, but we are
Yeah.
going to now wind it down. Our number 1 storyline of the 2025 Broken Arrow Skyrace. This is sort of a twofer, and it sort of gives us an elegant transition to preview tomorrow's ascent.
Yeah.
So what I wrote down for the top storyline is Killian versus Patrick in the ascent. Awesome. And then also the entire women's podium from the ascent in 2024 is back. So that was Joyce and Jayru, Anna Gibson, and Allie Mac. So take this in whatever direction you want. Maybe start with Killian, Patrick, and you can add any other names to the mix there. But I think Killian versus Patrick is worthy of a number one storyline on its own.
It's so good, and that's why it's such a bummer to be missing Remy, because Remy is actually the world record holder in the VK, which he took from Killian. But we've got Killian and we've got Patrick. Killian Jornet training for Western States. Obviously, we saw that Jim did. He was second to Patrick last year. But Killian is I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point, maybe just 2. He did an 80K training run, and then 2 days later, he went up his local, it's called Endulcinus or something. It's 1,800 feet, super steep, and he PR'd in the middle of training for Western States.
Real quick. So this is like the local test piece where
Yeah.
Killian lives in Norway.
He's been doing it for years.
In that little area, there's a ton of ridiculously talented endurance athletes. And this hill, which he documents in his YouTube video,
Yeah.
you can see just how steep, how technical, how challenging it is. But it is the sort of thing that a lot of people use as just to gauge their fitness.
Yeah.
Like, am I close to my PR?
And he broke his own PR, and the second fastest time on there is Petter Engdahl. And I'm sorry, Petter, if I'm getting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure that his time was 2 minutes faster than Petter's time. It's a 19-minute segment. Like, Killian Jornet is going to show up and, like, you know, look at Patrick Kipnieno, who is the double VK champion at this point, and not be shaken in his boots at all.
Yeah.
I'm stoked.
Yeah, it was funny. Last year in our post-race show after the ascent, I asked Patrick a question that still makes me cringe of just like, you know, because Walmsley finished second last year. I was like, you know, it's pretty cool to have Jim there. Like, were you thinking about it? And he was like, I'm the 2-time world champion. But of course, in a very respectful way.
Yes.
And Jim, to his credit too, asked me to take a selfie of Jim and Patrick together. So anyway, another kind of like, it feels similar this year. Where I'm sure both Patrick and Killian have a ton of mutual respect for one another. It's not guaranteed that one or the other is going to win the race, but certainly the battle between Patrick and Killian is one.
And they've raced before.
Yeah.
Like, whereas, like, I don't think that Jim and, you know, Patrick had probably ever
No.
raced before, but Killian's raced Patrick and Philemon at Sears and all. So, like, they've all been around each other in the past.
Okay, so the women's full podium is back. Joyce, I went back and looked at the results. I think she beat Anna by almost 2 minutes in the vertical last year.
And remember, didn't she tell you that it was like a 5 out of 10 effort
Yeah,
or
right.
something?
It's like, oh yeah, just easy.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, Joyce won the full Golden Trail World Series last year. New sponsor this year, running for Normal.
Yep.
It seemed like she had a couple hiccups in the early races in Asia, like she got off course in China or Japan, I want to say.
I think it's
And
Japan, yeah.
anyway, so it's been a rockier start to the season, but coming back as the double champion here at the Ascent and 23K. I don't know.
Yes, she got a rocky start, but also her first 2 races last year were nothing that like blew my mind either. It felt like she came here, she won the VK, she won the 23K, and like the rest of her year was just like perfect, you know? Like she didn't win Sears and all, but that's a very hard thing to do, as we just saw. Yeah. But she won everything else she touched and ended up winning the, you know, the Golden Trail overall. But I do think that Anna Gibson is coming back a different athlete. I think that Allie Mac is coming back a different athlete. And I'm not so sure that Joyce is going to have it as easy this year.
Yeah. Well, remember, Allie Mac has been a world champion in the VK.
Yeah. So
3 years ago in Thailand.
And last year, Allie was still like kind of off, I think. And her performance at the up-down world qualifier at Sunapee a couple weekends ago, I was like, okay, like this is a different Allie than we had last year. So I think it's going to be a good race between those 3.
Okay, well, let's do a deeper preview here. But before we do, Ryan, can you bring up the course real quick? So Ryan's going to bring up the new Broken Arrow Ascent course. There has been some breaking news here. The weather for the weekend is looking clear, but cool.
Yeah.
Borderline cold. And tomorrow is going to be howling windy. So just to touch on the conditions really quick, we had to change the course here of the Broken Arrow Ascent due to a wind advisory. They're expecting gusts up to 45 miles an hour here in the valley, meaning 70 to 80 mile an hour gusts at the top of the mountain. So they had to make an adjustment. The course is now only 2.15 miles with 1,800 feet of climbing. So it's shorter, faster. Ryan's showing us the course. What you see here is both the ascent route and the descent route. Of course, they're only racing on the way up. The descent route, they will all just jog down in a sportsman-like fashion after they race up. But anyway, so you see the first half of the Strava file on screen here. That's going to be the race course tomorrow. Talk about how this changes things, changes the dynamic.
I got the notification because obviously I'm racing, so I got like the email and stuff that it was changed, and I looked at Tommy and I was like, oh my god, I have to go change my Freetrail fantasy right now because 2.1 miles is so short. Like this has basically just become like a sprint race.
Yeah.
I think the men will end up running under 20 minutes. I think the women will run under 25 minutes. And if you think about that, like that's shorter than a 10K on the track. Like we are going all out VKs are already all out, but I'm a little scared of what tomorrow's going to look like now.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it does change the dynamic a little bit. It potentially reduces the difficulty of people who are doing the double.
Yes.
And in general, probably favors the people with the higher end VO2 max versus the people who can dig a little bit, which I think is a good segue to start talking about some of the deeper characters in the field here beyond the Killians and the Patricks and the Philomans and the Joyces, the Allies, the Anna Gibsons.
Yeah.
Who are you looking at, and who does this course favor now?
So I think on the women's side, the women's was definitely the biggest change for me because I think it begins to favor a lot of those track gals. I've got Anna Gibson, Allie Mac, Rachel Tomaszek, Allie Ostrander, Janelle Lynx, like all those women. Joyce is also very fast, but she doesn't, like if you look at her World Athletics profile, she's not as fast as a lot of those women. She could still, I still don't see her outside of my top three, but I think that it really favors the American women because they have this background on the track.
Interesting.
On the men's side, I didn't actually change much because a lot of these men are still very fast, but I did move like Andy Wacker up a lot because, for anybody who's been paying attention to Andy Wacker's Strava over the last 6 months, dude's faster than ever. He's in my top 5 now.
Dude, he came to the Big Alta and ran the 28K. It was stupid. I kept up with him for 30 seconds.
He's so fast now. And I think it becomes a disadvantage for those athletes that are like mountain athletes, like a Cam Smith. I think it becomes less of his race than it would have been otherwise, which is a bummer, but it does open up the door for a couple athletes that I would not have had on the team to begin with.
One person we haven't mentioned yet, who we also got heat for our fantasy favorites post the other day on Instagram, is we didn't include a picture of Joe Gray in there, which of course is a major oversight.
Yeah, Joe Gray is ready to smash. He was in my top 5 already, and he did not leave.
He is such a legend. I mean, we should really reinforce this for the viewers and listeners. I think he's been a U.S. champion 22 times. He's
going
basically
to double check this right
been
now.
on every world championship team going back 15 years. He's in his 40s now, and he still can lace it up in a 20-minute race and be a contender.
Yeah, 29-time U.S. champion, 9-time world champion, Joe Gray. And so GoPro Games was last weekend, 2 weekends ago now, and he did this. They have this thing called Pepe's Face Off, where you basically have 30 minutes to do this super short loop that's straight up a ski hill and then kind of down this more runnable section. And apparently Joe Gray almost started his 8th lap for the first time ever at 41. So, and he's been running that race, for 6 years now, maybe even longer. So, I mean, he's ready to go. Yeah. I'm excited to see him in the mix with Killian and Patrick and Philemon. Whereas last year we didn't see as many Americans in the mix with Patrick. So,
it's devastating that he's not running the 46K, making his ultra debut like Grayson Murphy. And also he's not running the 23K, which he won 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But so for our audience, Joe likely now looking for his 10,000th birth to a Team USA, inclusion with the vertical at the World Championships this year. He, for whatever reason, has not been compelled or curious to step up to an ultra, but holy smokes, if he was running the 46K with David and Eli, would that be one for the ages?
Crazy.
But Joe Gray is in the mix here tomorrow, and he will certainly be one of the contenders up there with, the Killians and Patricks, etc. Another couple names just to throw out there. Darren Smith, your buddy from Reno.
Darren Thomas.
Darren Thomas from Reno. He's always been strong here, including winning the vertical one year. Cam Smith has won the vertical here. We'll remember that great battle he had with Eli Hemming when the Hemmings were just coming into the sport. Christian Allen, who I think was 4th in the vertical last year. And part of this
great sprint finish with Mika.
Where's Mika this year?
He's listed on the 23 K. No, he's listed on the 46K, I think.
Holy smokes.
Let me double check this, but
All right, well, while you're looking at that, just
Yeah,
a couple more
46K.
on the men's side that I think are interesting. Chris Myers, like Killian, doing Western States next weekend.
and Ryan Montgomery.
And Ryan Montgomery.
Yeah.
Those are the two I was going to add.
Yeah.
So fun stories there to follow. And then, you know, some other really strong and interesting names here on the women's side. Casey Enman, are you familiar with her?
Oh, yeah.
She's been on Team USA a number of times. She's
She's
probably
a
in
world
her
champion.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
World champion.
I think she's 43
She's
now. And
mid-40s.
she made the last US team in the classic event. So it's like you can't count her out at all.
Jess
no.
Brazeau was, I think, 5th in the vertical last year. We mentioned Jade Bellsberg already. She's been having an incredible last 2 seasons. She's already on 2 Team Canada. She's racing 2 distances at the World Championships for Canada.
Okay.
So Jade Bellsberg doing the ascent tomorrow.
And
the
she was actually
23K.
second at our long trail qualifier. But
Yep,
she's Canadian, so
exactly.
obviously she didn't get that spot. But like she's up there with our ladies.
That was one of the stories after Gorge, was that if Jade wanted to, or because she has dual citizenship,
Yeah.
she could represent Canada in 3 distances and the USA in 1. She qualified for all 4 distances in the space of
That's
9
wild.
months across 2 countries. Unbelievable.
Good for her. Yeah, we got a
mentioned-
couple of like European women here. Camilla Magliano, who was 7th at OCC, and Alice Goodall, who doesn't have as many like trail results, but recently ran 32:08 in a 10K.
Yeah.
So this, short uphill course is going to be great for her. It'll be good.
Rad. So tomorrow, as I understand it, the race will be live broadcast on the Mountain Outpost YouTube channel. I think it's being co-hosted by Eli and Tabor Hemming, which is
cool.
going to be fun. I'm on the call in the Golden Trail race, but I think that's only for people who subscribe to Warner Brothers Discovery. Don't quote me on that, but we'll clarify that in the next couple of days. But suffice it to say, starting at 9:30 tomorrow, Broken Arrow is off to the races, and it's going to be a sick 3 days here in Palisades, Tahoe.
Nonstop fun.
Nonstop fun. Closing comments from you, EmKay, before we wind down?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, if you guys are in the area and you've got nothing to do this weekend, or even if you do have something to do this weekend, don't do it. Come up to Broken Arrow. It's going to be a blast, whether you're running or just spectating, or you just want to come check out the vendors and eat food.
Yeah. And if you can't be here in person, just block off your calendar at 3:30 every afternoon, because your friends here at Freetrail are going to keep you informed. In that spirit, we'll close things down with a reminder. Please subscribe to the channel. It would be really much appreciated if you would do that. Also, go play fantasy, fantasy.freetrail.com. Pick 5 deep for the men and women in all 3 distances, the Ascent, the 46K, and the 23K, for a chance to win some cool prizes from your friends here. Tomorrow, we're going to be back at 3:30 p.m., like I said, so you're not going to want to go anywhere. We're going to hopefully get some of the top performers here in studio, and we'll preview the 46K on Saturday, which of course is going to be another very exciting competition. Thank you to Hoka for their support. Big thank you to the team behind the scenes, my boy Ryan Thrower here sitting just to the left, Harmony Bowman also off camera. And I think that's it. I think we covered it. 8 days of trailgating starts right now. Thank you all so much for joining us. For EmKay Sullivan, team behind the scenes, I'm Debo. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Peace out. Good show.